This is Rodney A. Brooks, and welcome to RodneyABrooks.com. Today we're talking to my good friend, Deborah Owens.
It's so good to be here.
And Deborah has written a new book called Wealth Secrets, A Woman's Guide to Own and Secure Your Financial Future. Okay. So I talked about life stages once. So if you have 2 or 3 pieces of advice for one, somebody out of college, woman out of college, first starting the first job, 2 middle-aged, and 3 retirement age. Give me a couple of pieces of advice for each one of those life stages.
Okay, tall task, but I'll see if I can rise to the occasion, Mr. Brooks. For millennials, just start, right? Like, don't get hung up on trying to put in as much as you can. Start with the 5%, and then every year just start increasing it until you get to the maximum. So that's the advice that I would give them. And, again, at least invest in your 401k or 457, whatever your investment is, up to the amount that your employer will match. Now, for middle age, what I want to say, one of the things that we do in Wealthy You is we have them do a financial independence planner, right? So they really learn, okay, based on what we have right now, if I continue on this track, where is it going to lead me? And usually there's a big gap, right? And so that's what you have in when folks are in middle age, because they've bought the houses, they've sent kids to college, so they didn't have that discretionary income. So middle is like, okay, now let's put the pedal to the metal. Let's make sure that you max out at 50. You can put away more now in a 401k. You can put $30,000 maximum away if you want to make the full contribution. Now it's your time to play retirement catch up. That's what's important.
Okay.
And then finally, right, you want it the person that's already retired?
Or about to retire. Either one or
Either
both.
one. What I would say, don't be too conservative, right? I think there's a tendency for people to think that, okay, now that I'm retired, I got to put all my money in, something where I'm not going to lose money. And the fact is that inflation, if your money's not keeping up with inflation, you're already losing money. And so what I would say that any money that you're not going to need in the next 5 years could still have some investment or stock exposure, right? But of course there are degrees, right? So you could go into conservative growth mutual funds that are paying dividends with what are called the dividend aristocrats that been paying dividends for a long time. So that's really the advice I would get for someone who's nearing or already retired.
Now we're talking about 401ks, and this is true of men or women, because I talked to a financial advisor, I think he was in Richmond, and one of his clients was a woman who retired from the government, and she had a TSP, and she basically went out and bought a new BMW, and without telling him, and he got upset. He basically said, "You can't afford it." And so my point here is that people have in their 401ks more money than they've ever had before.
Right.
But they don't really realize, one, taxes haven't been paid, and 2, that you have actually probably many things other than these 2, but 2 is you have to live off that for the rest of your life. I mean, adding Social Security. Now, is that more so with women, or is that just everybody? When it comes to looking at that big number you got in there and just saying.
Well, and that's why we do the financial independence planner, right?
Okay.
So really, what I would suggest, and I'm on my way to talk to a group of African American financial advisors in Chicago, and one of the important things that advisors must do is they must enlighten their clients, right? But enlightenment is not making up a plan or telling them a plan. Enlightenment is enrolling them in the plan and giving them different scenarios, right? So if you do X, here's where you're going to end up. If you do Y, here's where you're going to end up. Now, I'm a little different, Rodney, just in terms of how I believe people should spend their money, right? A lot of it goes back to your own values. And I believe that for so many people, especially with COVID, what we've seen is a lot of unexpected early deaths. And I believe that people are thinking about, well, I've been waiting for so long. What if something happens to me? And so I really think there has to be a balance between you living your life today and saving for that rainy day. And I think what I've seen in Wealthy You is once people have sort of developed what we call their wealth blueprint, and they understand based on the choices that they make now where they're going to be in the future, then they can make better decisions, right? It's economics. They're trade-offs. And I think that if people go into it understanding the long-term implication of the decision that they're going to make today, then they'll make better decisions. But it doesn't necessarily mean that I can't get a car. You know what I mean? Yeah, you know, don't go get the most expensive car, right? You can get what you want. It doesn't have to be brand new. Those are the kinds of trade-offs that I'm talking about. You can go, maybe you want to take that vacation and go on business class, right? But are you going to do that every time? No. So I think that in order for people to live and live long and live abundantly, that they have to experience some of the joy of their labor throughout their lives. And so I'm not necessarily frugal Fanny. I think there's a trade-off.
Okay, so two other things I want to talk to you about, and this relates to men or women, and that's cars and car payments. I think there's like a 9-year car payment now. What kind of advice do you give people when it comes to the length of their car payments?
Well, that's a middle class mindset, right? And in the book, that's one of the first things that I really challenge about how wealthy people versus middle class people think. And if you think about it, the way middle class folks are sold things is based on the monthly payment. It's never looking at the whole cost of that mortgage, right, over time, or the whole cost of that car payment. That's exactly why there are 10-year car loan payments, because they're trying to manage that monthly income and also that debt to income ratio on whether or not they're going to even qualify that loan, right? And so the point that I want to make in terms of middle class folks, it's just understanding that the difference between a middle class mindset and a wealth mindset is the person with the wealth mindset looks at getting a return on investment, right? And typically, the way I like to explain it is how an author explained it. Poverty mindset, day to day. Poor mindset, week to week. Middle class mindset. And the great wealth transfer is you and me transferring all of our hard work and assets to our children. And the deal is, man, if you haven't prepared those children for how to, well, first, if you haven't gotten a trust, if you have significant assets and you're going to make sure that money's doled out over time, but also if you're going to create intergenerational wealth, meaning it's going to last more than one generation, you've got to have some solid conversations with your children right now. That's really what I want to encourage, right? Baby boomers who, through the sweat equity of our ancestors, who got us things like affirmative actions into schools, being able to go into corporations, get hired, have multiple degrees, get access to capital, building businesses now. That is all for naught. It's not enough to create the income or the assets. The assets have to transfer from generation to generation.
Okay, great stuff. So my last question to you is about credit scores. Okay. And how important they are. Well, for all all of these, for all ages, basically, and it's sort of an afterthought for most people, isn't it?
It can be an afterthought, but the truth is, we have AI now, right? We have apps, we have all kinds of things, and one of the secrets in the book is really using technology and leveraging systems to automate your wealth and your finances, right? And so to that end, what I believe is that, again, it's something that you're not taught. Right? So I remember living in Hawaii around a lot of military people, and the young men interview me, and as soon as they get their first paycheck, they're running out and they come back with this Mustang or whatever because they got talked into it because they don't know any better. But the point that I want to make is that credit scores, just like anything, it's strategy. Right? And if you don't understand how that number is derived, then you can find yourself in a situation where you're going to pay more for anything that you finance. But here's the good news, right? The good news is that it doesn't take a long time to manage and to, even if you have a poor credit score, to change that. But if you don't understand it, you need to get help. That's the problem, right? I believe that money is taboo and there's a lot of shame attached to it around ignorance. And so what happens is we don't want to ask the question because we don't want people to know that we don't know. We think we should know already, but how would we know? Like I said, this information, it is inherited, so you didn't learn it in your formal education. And if you didn't have a financial mentor or someone to expose you to what you need to do, there shouldn't be any shame. You can measure a person's level of success by their ability to ask for help. I believe that truly, and I am living proof of that.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you, Deborah Owens. We're, again, talking to Deborah Owens, author of Wealth Secrets. And here's the book. Is it on Amazon?
It's on Amazon. Go right on, and we became a bestseller on the first day.
Oh,
so
great.
We're excited about that. Yeah, please go and get the book and learn how women from all walks of life have been able to transform their finances, but more importantly, are on their way to creating legacy wealth, because that's what it's about.
And give us your website.
Our website is wealthyu.com.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rodney, for having me.
Okay.